As consumers, as human beings, we are prisoners of convenience. If you look at the sales of ice cream, they're growing many-fold on quick commerce. So what happens is that what used to be an impulse seasonal product is becoming an everyday product.
Yeah.
So when you reduce the friction in satisfying your impulses, the impulses become habits. So it's far more convenient, far more cheaper to indulge in junk, unhealthy food than to eat healthier options. Now I realize better for you is a bigger sham.
You're just saying you're better than that
Yeah.
one guy who's
So
worse than you.
How is atta noodles better than regular Maggi? Seriously, how is a digestive biscuit, whatever, with 2% atta better than regular biscuit? It's easier to stick to something 100% of the time than 99% of the time. मतलब एक सिगरेट चल जाएगा, आज वीकेंड है, बाहर हो, मैच है, एक बियर चल जाएगा. That एक is never एक.
Yeah.
Then the rebound is very bad. Around 2015, anxiety attack, massive panic disorder. And it was a very, very troublesome time for me. And I went down that rabbit hole to understand about what is making me anxious. And I realized that there's a, very strong connection between physical health and mental health. And there's a very strong correlation between what I'm eating and how I'm feeling.
Oh, wow.
Your body gives you signals. वो काफ़ी gentle signals होते हैं. या तो आप उसको समझ लो, या मेरी तरह इग्नोर करते रहो, तो फिर जब सिग्नल्स के बाद मौका आता है ना, वो डंडा पड़ता है.
What about, like nutrition now coming in the form of tablet?
I'm sorry to say, but I don't know what is a polite way to put it. I absolutely hate them. Consumers genuinely lack knowledge. All right? A lot of them actually. For example, so many people don't know protein is important, but how much protein do I need to have?
A friend of mine called 2 days back, and he called and he said, "How are you doing? How's health? How's health?" I said, "It's fine." I said, "Is this how we start our conversation in our 40s?" And he said, "No, this is how I start a conversation with anyone I speak to now, because people in their 20s are struggling."
My wife ordered vegetables from Akshayakalpa and they came wrapped up in some kind of leaves. I actually took the picture and posted it on LinkedIn. And so many people in my circle, I've told them that, you can actually taste the freshness, you can feel the freshness. Right? My favorite Akshayakalpa product will be buttermilk.
The spiced one?
The spiced one.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a story behind our spiced buttermilk. All the spices that we add is fresh from the farm. We just pluck it from the farm there and we just grind it.
You can feel that in the taste. It hits you very different. Yeah. Today I open any of the quick commerce apps and order organic atta, whatever. I see so many brands. Everyone having organic in their name. But I'll tell you something, and for younger people who might be watching this, is that
welcome to the Good Food Talks. Today, we're joined by Gurudev Prasad, who brings a unique perspective as someone who's worked behind the scenes in consumer brand space while also navigating his own personal journey with food and well-being. In a world of clever marketing and confusing labels, how do we really judge if something we eat is actually good? This question became deeply personal for Gurudev when health challenges forced him to look beyond marketing claims and discover the profound disconnect between perception and reality. In this thought-provoking conversation, Gurudev pulls back the curtain on the complex world of food marketing. Hi Gurudev, welcome to Good Food Talks.
Hey, hi Vichna, and glad to be here.
So what we do on Good Food Talks is we have conversations around food, speak to people from various walks of life who have, in-depth knowledge on possibly one particular dimension of food, and we try to bring that out for our audience, because we feel like there's a lot that is happening in the space of food. There's a lot that is going wrong in the space of food as well, and this could possibly be a small push that we give to consumers to become more conscious, to become more mindful about what they eat and what they consume in general. So thank you so much for coming and joining us.
So I think I should probably put a disclaimer ahead. I was actually very reluctant and shy of coming here because I've seen your other episodes, and a lot of people who come there are very discerning, conscious consumers. By no stretch of imagination, I'm a very health-seeking, health-conscious consumer. I'm trying to make some good choices, but I have my moments of weakness. I'm obsessed with Parle Ji, obsessed with desserts, but trying to make few good choices. I think the value that I can bring here is to probably bring in a certain sense of how are consumers looking at this space? How are they kind of how are they making choices? How are they navigating this whole space which is changing so fast.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I wouldn't fully agree because some of the conversations we've had in the past tells me that you are on this journey to being more conscious, not just for yourself, but for your family. Ria also in the previous episode who had come said, I don't think too much about food. But when we started speaking, we realized that she's also being very, very conscious and she did not realize herself. So we'll see how this episode unfolds.
All the kind of good food choices or generally good choices in my life happen because of my wife. So I'm forced into some of those choices, but yeah, let's see. Yeah.
Super. So you've been in brand consulting for a while now, and you interact with what, about 1,000 consumers a year?
On an average, yes. Around 1,000 odd consumers, all in-depth interactions across categories.
Right. And what's that like? And and do you see sparks of conscious consumption happening in this space?
Yeah, a lot of interesting things happening in this space actually, because it's one of those spaces which is buzzing and changing very fast. Also, the consumers are changing very fast and they're trying to kind of acclimatize to the kind of stimulus thrown at them. I think along the way, probably we'll kind of delve deeper into it, but exciting space, exciting conversations with consumers. And coincidentally, we don't repeat categories and we work on, one brand at a time. But I've recently done some work around health and nutrition and wellness and so on. So some of those conversations are very fresh in my mind. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
So you said that, your journey particularly has been because of an external stimuli, which is your wife kind of saying that we need to go in this direction. Was there an inflection point that caused you to go in that direction?
Yeah, actually, there are few inflection points, right? And one of the inflection points I think is common for many people is that when you have a child, you generally for the first time pause and think and reset your priorities, and you probably become better person at every level or try to be better person and wanting to make better choices. So that's a big inflection point. That definitely happened. Second inflection point, I was selling beer before I started my own consulting outfit. And in beer, market visits mean pub hopping.
Yeah.
Right. So in my mid-30s, the lifestyle was very unhealthy. I was consuming a lot of beer, eating a lot of junk, absolutely enjoying that kind of lifestyle. But there came a point where I said that enough is enough. Now I need to kind of make that change. One very interesting or important thing I think I should talk about, which not many people talk in India, is that I also had a bit of a mental health crisis around 2015. So anxiety attack, massive, panic disorder. And it was a very, very troublesome time for me. And especially because I had just about started at that time. And as a researcher, that comes naturally to me. I went down that rabbit hole to understand about this and a bit of self-awareness of what is making me anxious. And I realized that there's a huge, very strong connection between physical health and mental health. And there's a very strong correlation between what I'm eating and how I'm feeling.
Oh, wow.
Right. And a lot of changes have happened since then. So that was actually, if you look at everything in the order of, priority, the biggest thing that has actually changed me. And now in retrospect, I can say that it has made me a better person, but it was one of the most turbulent times for me is the mental health issues and the anxiety issues I've had, right? It's not that you're not cured of anxiety. You just get better at managing it. So probably, managing it better now. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I would not have thought that food plays a role in,
very, very, very big role, right? For example, simple things like I don't have caffeine after 2:00. So like coffee for that matter. Even forget about actual food consumption, even my media consumption has changed. I don't read newspapers. I only read business news. I don't watch news channels. My phone is on airplane mode at 10 sharp. 1.5, 2 hours before my, sleep time, I don't look at phone. I don't look at screens. I spend time with a book. So many changes, I've made because of that. Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, I think all of us think that we want to do a lot of these things, but we don't really get around to doing it. I feel like there's so much content that is, thrown at us, where we are told, like, we know what is right, what is wrong, right? Because
I'll, sorry to cut you there, but, I'll tell you something. And for younger people who might be watching this is that, your body gives you signals. वो काफी gentle signals होते हैं. या तो आप उसको समझ लो, या मेरी तरह इग्नोर करते रहो, तो फिर जब सिग्नल्स के बाद मौका आता है ना, वो डंडा पड़ता है, वो काफ़ी हार्ड होता है, राइट? So I've, gone through this phase of, struggling with this for over a decade now. It's a part of my life. But a lot of youngsters, cousins, people who reach out to me for advice or whatever, I tell them that health is your biggest leverage. Matlab, protect it.
Yeah.
No matter you're a startup founder, you're a student, or you're a professional, I think health is so critical.
Yeah.
And you don't realize it. You take it for granted till it goes away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very true, like, and I feel like even when it comes to managing your emotions, or I feel there's a lot of suppression that happens wherever you see, like people try to kind of, I think suppressing what you feel is considered to be a show of strength, which really it's not, isn't it? Like, just
absolutely. I don't want to make this like a boring episode on mental health, but even for someone who is fairly educated like me, a very supportive system at home, my wife, parents, everyone, the biggest problem there is that of acceptance. There's such a taboo around it, and you don't want to accept yourself that you have like a mental health issue.
Yeah, very true.
Because it's almost like you're labeling yourself that way, right? And then eventually it came to a place where I couldn't function normally, honestly. And I went to a psychiatrist and, therapist and so on. And when I look back, what is my biggest regret? My biggest regret is I wish I reached out for help earlier. That's my biggest regret. And I do a lot of work today. I work with so many founders in openly talking about it. What was my vulnerability and something I tried to hide is almost like a conversation starter for me now. Because I really feel that more people should, openly talk about it and encourage others who are suffering in silence to reach out for help.
Yeah.
Right.
I have so much to say, but I'm just holding back from, like some of the, so I'm raising my child. He's 5 now. And one of the things that they speak a lot, like, so there's a lot of content around parenting that is out there, right?
Yes.
So one of the content piece that is there is around basically giving children the vocabulary for feelings. So right now, children will know how to say, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm angry.
Absolutely.
These are the only 3 words that are there in their vocabulary, right?
True.
Like, so they need to be in a position where they can name their feelings, because when you name it, you can tame it.
True,
so that's the,
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of books that I have with which I have these conversations with him. And, and I feel like when I'm doing that with him, I feel like there's a lot of self-reflection that is needed from my end as well, because we don't name a lot of things that we feel, and it's just hidden somewhere, and you suddenly see it coming out of nowhere, and you're like, why did that happen?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So coming to food, and you were speaking about how food plays a role, whether it's physical health or mental health. During COVID, after COVID rather, we saw a lot of young startups coming and speaking in the space of better for you, space, right? Like whether it's snacks or anything else, right? So what do you think about this space that is now emerging, where there's a lot of better for you conversation that is happening?
So COVID is almost like a outlier event, a big inflection point, right? I read it somewhere. I don't remember now, probably Scott Galloway. It's almost like a decade's worth of change happened in those few years. And, there's a reason for, the emergence of brands in this space. One is that all of us actually, the risk of health and the impact of it on everything, including our finances, was very tangible.
Yeah.
You're seeing people all around you falling sick and, the implications of it. So there was no option but to take your health seriously.
Yeah.
Right. And collectively it happened at like at a global level. So absolute inflection point. The second thing is that we were stuck at homes, not much to do. So our social media consumption kind of increased quite a bit.
Yeah.
And in conjunction, what happened is that the influencer content started kind of peaking, right? There was this whole boom around influencer content that happened. Third thing that also happened is that a lot of us for the first time started getting into kitchens to cook. And you might not be cooking something healthy. You might be baking, you might be brewing a coffee for yourself, but at least there is some intimacy, understanding of what is in our kitchen.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of these things happen. the other most important thing that happened is that we transitioned overnight to buying online. And when you kind of start buying online, the insurgent brands, the new age D2C brands have a kind of a unfair advantage over incumbent brands because they know that narrative, they know how to sell online. So you saw this huge uprising of D2C brands. So that's I think a lot of factors coming into play, and it has worked really well for some of these D2C brands. Yeah.
But how do I, as a consumer, how do I trust these brands? Because I feel there's just too many of them targeting me and telling me, have this, have that, this
Yeah.
capsule, moringa like this
Yeah.
versus a protein bar like that, like
True.
how do I, as a consumer, make those choices?
Yeah, it's actually a kind of a very interesting question because I've come out of talking to consumers around this space. There's so many things that are thrown at the consumer today, right? There's a organic, uh, vegan, gluten free, uh, no maida, no sugar. I think the vocabulary per se in this space is like really, filling fast. There's a small set of discerning consumers, probably people like you or, who are very conscious about what they're having and want to know everything about what they're having. So they will go to the website, read up reviews, look at your back label, try to do that research, whether what you're claiming is right or wrong. This is not like a popular truth, but for a large chunk of audience, they have to take what the brand is saying, the brand claim, on the face value. If the brand is saying organic, I have to believe that you're organic. If the brand is saying, I'm whatever, gluten free, vegan, I have to take on face value that you are that. How else will they do it? Yeah, right. They also have proxies. Proxies is that where is this brand selling? If I see in like modern retail formats, or if I see them, in places where sometimes you also derive trust from the place where the brand is seen, right? What are the reviews saying? Or more importantly, who is endorsing it? You will not believe, I met like fairly well-educated, affluent families in small town India, and they were very happily talking about some of the choices, healthier choices that they were making. And I asked them to list down a few. They said, we've moved from regular biscuits to digestive biscuits, right? And if you really look at the back of the label, the digestive biscuits they were talking about are still full of maida. And the funny thing is, someone said that, we made a very big change. We are making this, trying to make this healthier, choices. So we've moved from eating Maggi noodles to Atta Maggi noodles.
Yeah.
Right. And then when I asked them, they, probe them, they also talk about Madhuri Dixit, featuring in an ad and talking about how this is better. So there's a lot of, India is such a vast nation and there's so much disparity between consumers. There's one set of people who are top of the pyramid who are very discerning, cynical, looking at everything with a microscopic scrutiny. And there's a vast majority, the belly of India, which is still trying to make sense of all of this. Yeah, that's how it is. So to answer your question, consumers are they're coming to you from a place of trust, approaching brands from a place of trust. And unless you give them a reason to mistrust you or do something fundamentally wrong, they believe in what you're saying.
Yeah. But what that also means is that a lot of this can be gamified. Like, I know as a brand that if I do XYZ, I can earn that trust.
True.
And so if I'll go ahead and do that XYZ, and then I will gain that market share because I'm ticking all the right boxes as far as brand building is concerned.
True.
I may not really be a true brand who's standing for, what I'm saying. Is that?
No, that's very true actually. And from my narrative, it might feel like consumer is very gullible, vulnerable, but consumer is not stupid, right? There's a popular quote of David Ogilvy, which is inappropriate in today's time, but consumer is like absolutely not stupid. What is also happening is that there is the asymmetry of information is actually diminishing.
Yeah.
Right. Earlier, brands used to say something, you used to listen to it, believe it, and then you behave in a certain way. Today, the content around brand is, is produced by so many people. that sum total of that content is probably more than the content that the brand is producing itself. So you have reviews that are being written about you. You have influencers that are going to talk about you. You have customers who are happy, unhappy, expressing themselves about you. So, matlab, it is important for you to be transparent, you to be consistent and walk the talk.
Yeah.
Right? So he's going to give you a chance, but he's not going to be a fool.
Yeah.
And trust is so difficult to earn for people, for brands, everything. And it's extremely easy to lose.
Yeah.
Right? So that's a caveat that brands should really carefully realize.
Yeah. From one personal experience, like I've been trying to figure out where to get meat from, at home. And I've tried the famous, home delivery, online order apps that are there. I don't like it. I found this one more smaller one who has, who started coming up.
Yeah.
And somehow that meat is different, right? Like it tastes better. Absolutely. And, the texture is better and all of those things. But like, I think in that journey, like for example, with what Akshayakalpa has done with consumers like me, is that they've given so much transparency. They said, come to our farm, see everything, see, like for example, we also have eggs, right? Like, so we have this whole program now that is set up for backyard poultry. You can come, you can see how the hens are living, you can see what the hens are eating, right? So you're giving me that much transparency that when I buy that and give that to my son, I feel fully confident that you're doing the right job. So the good thing that is happening, I feel, is that for that discerning lot, I'm going back to that brand now, and it's so easy to chat with brands nowadays,
true,
right?
Absolutely.
So I'm having a long Instagram conversation with them on DMs saying, how are you raising your hens, right? True. What are you feeding them? And they're trying to win my trust, and I'm giving them a lot of time to kind of get back with the answers and all of those things.
So see, the thing is also that the advantage is that you don't have to make fancy ads, right? You can make authentic content that can be rough around the edges, but people are still going to believe in you because they're rooting for the underdogs. So I'll tell you an example of Akshayakalpa. So my wife ordered vegetables from Akshayakalpa, and they came wrapped up in some kind of leaves. I actually took the picture and posted it on LinkedIn. And so many people in my circle that I kind of hang out with, I've told them that, you can actually taste the freshness. You can feel the freshness, right? So consumers are your biggest evangelists.
Yeah.
All right. That's how it is. Yeah.
So, organic has become quite the buzzword. There's a lot of talk around it. How do you think consumers are, making that are deciding whether a brand that is saying that they're organic is really organic or not? Like, how are they making?
Yeah. Again, an unpopular opinion, right? If you go around and ask people what is organic, and forget about these discerning people who really know what it is. And I did this exercise recently, and I went around asking people what is organic, and there's so many definitions. Organic is 100% safe, natural, pesticide free. I don't know. Like, there's no clear definition or understanding of what is organic for a vast majority of consumers. But what they know, that this is a better alternative, or this is better than what exists. I think that's so as I said, and also there is no way for me to really judge whether you're organic or not, except maybe looking at a certification. It is the barriers to switching, if you look at them, they're also very fairly easy, right? Easy come, easy go. So it's easy to get a consumer, but it's also very easy to lose them. So it's important for the brands to kind of reduce that cognitive load. And when there's an ocean of options, all claiming organic, how do you really convince me in the minimum amount of time that you really are organic, right? Don't expect the consumers to do the hard work there. I think that is a big lesson for the brands. Consumers inherently are lazy. Consumers inherently don't want to do the hard work. Brands are a shorthand for decision making because they don't want to do this thinking every time that they're making a choice. So the onus is on the brands to like communicate that why what we're claiming is true, right? Otherwise, consumers really, I think it's a difficult choice. Today, I open any of the quick commerce apps and order organic atta, whatever. I see so many brands, everyone having organic in their name. That's the easiest plug for them to kind of get consumers' attention, right? So you don't want this to become a battle of who is the first one listed and who is the offering the best price. You want this to become a real battle where people understand that if you're claiming organic, why are you so? and then how are you justifying your premium, right?
Yeah.
One more thing about organic and why we're talking about it is that one of the proxies for consumer is that, of course, as I said, the stature. Where are you selling? Do I see your brand often in my circle? Are people using it, recommending it? One of the big proxies for organic is pricing. So if it is premium, if it is good for me, if it is pesticide free, whatever, they take premium pricing as a proxy for quality. Yeah.
So that had happened in with some of our customers. Like on the app we have this milk which is lactose-free milk, which is the most expensive. There are some consumers who had picked it up thinking that this is the most expensive, so possibly this is the best milk.
One,
without
true.
Which is very
Absolutely.
true of this category. But I'd like to slightly differ on this point of view. Like one of the things we do at Akshayakalpa is we tell our consumers that you have to understand where your food comes from. Right. And food is such an important part of our lives.
Absolutely.
Right. So trying to do a little bit of that groundwork on what you put on the plate for your family is important. And so we have this whole farm visit program where we ask consumers to come visit, spend 2 days. And I think on an average now, I think we've hosted more than 40,000 customers so far, people who have come, stayed with us, seen the journey of their food, seen the journey of their milk. Of course, like that 40,000 is a very small percentage when you look at this.
Yeah, but I think it's not about the number of people who experience, it's about the number of people that they're going to talk to.
Yeah.
Right? Like 40,000 people will talk to their immediate circle of friends, family, some of them will post about it. So you're amplifying it to millions of people.
Yeah.
And for all the rightful reasons is why someone like me would trust an Akshayakalpa or many other brands that claim to be offering same thing, right? The power to kind of take me behind the scenes.
Yes.
And show me what is happening.
Yeah.
And that's where brands which are the challenger brands have a big advantage.
And it's, one is of course the transparency that these brands can build. But the second is also knowledge, right?
Yeah.
When you go to an Akshayakalpa farm, you'll definitely come back with 10 lessons on how to grow your food, what are the right things to do when it comes to, and you'll never, like that's what we speak about, within our team, that once you come and you go back, you'll never look at food the same way.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think that knowledge building is also a very important part of this whole organic space.
I think as a marketeer for Akshayakalpa, one of the challenges for you as well as an opportunity is that practically it will not be possible to get millions of people into the farms. But how do I take this experience of farm to them through content or through whatever means? Because once I see that, that's my biggest reason to believe, right? And unless things go wrong, consumers generally in some of these categories have this inertia. They don't want to switch unnecessarily, right? For something which is high stakes and which is to do with the nutrition and health of family.
Right. So speaking of nutrition, let's speak about nutrition labels and certifications that are there on the back of pack of so many of the products that we buy. How do consumers make sense of this?
At an overall level, I think there is just a heightened sense of, wanting to understand what goes into products. That's one thing. So it is definitely improving, but I think it's still far from being mainstream. The second point, which is nuance, which a lot of people need to understand, is that there's a difference between claimed versus actual behavior, right? And I've seen this in food. So I talk to a lot of people that how do you buy? Oh, I go to the store, and very like health conscious people, and I look at the label, I look at all the things, and then I make a purchase. And then few days later, I accompany them to a store visit. And I look at them looking at something for 5 seconds and actually just putting it in. The other thing is that consumers genuinely lack knowledge. All right. A lot of them actually. For example, so many people don't know protein is important, but how much protein do I need to have? So what is the,
and in
like,
what form?
What is a number? What form? Plant protein, whey protein, there are like so many kinds of it, right? Then there is labeling that all fat is bad, right? There are nuances, right? It's not as easy as possible, and a lot of people don't. And I am talking like, we also spoke to people who are into fitness, who are going to gym in, kind of tier 2, 3 cities, and their gym instructors are pushing these protein bottles to them, supplements to them, but they don't have a clue of how many, whatever grammage of protein do you need, right? So there is this lack of information. So difference between claimed versus actual, lack of information which is genuine, and also attention deficit, right? So there's so many products and so many the stimuli kind of vying for your attention, चाहे वो online aisle हो, supermarket की aisle हो. So it's, as a brand, it's your job to put least amount of cognitive effort and kind of communicate to the consumer. So from all the work that I've done on this space, I think my biggest finding is that the front label is the new back label, right? Whatever you want to communicate to your consumer, quickly those 3 or 4 things, make sure that when they look at your package, they don't have to pick it up and read the back label. Front label does the job of that, right? It's a good kind of place to be in, where they pick up and read a back label very carefully. But I think there's distance to cover.
Yeah.
And as a brand, it's your job to make it easy for consumers to, kind of make that decision.
Yeah. And personally, when you started on this journey, what were some of the filters that you were applying as a family?
I generally in life go by a rule of kind of thumb. So my rule of thumb is that anything that's home cooked is better than packaged food. Simple. Even if it is a home cooked samosa, I think it's better than packaged food. I might be wrong. I'm not claiming that I'm right. But these kind of rules help me. Right. So that was one. And then, of course, the common enemies that everybody is talking about, maida and refined food, processed food, and so on. So try to stay away from that. But I indulge, actually, As I said, my biggest obsession, I don't know why, is Parle-G biscuits. I sometimes have chai so that I can have Parle-G. Imagine I have a chai without sugar, but I'm having like a pack of Parle-G, right? I don't know. Maybe it's a bridge to my childhood. I really don't know. And also a lot of stressful eating, right? The other important thing that you need to realize is that if you look at the sales of ice creams, I had written about it recently, they're growing many-fold on quick commerce. I'm assuming, so what happens is that what used to be an impulse seasonal product is becoming an everyday product. So when you reduce the friction in satisfying your impulses, which happens through your, quick commerce apps and all, the impulses become habits. And that is what is happening. I'm ordering I was looking at my order history, and I'm ordering a lot more ice cream than I actually used to have. And this might be true because I also read some of the reports of how the numbers are growing and how the seasonality is no longer relevant. It's happening throughout the year. So a lot of these factors come into play.
But I think it's also like one of the things that I try to do at home is that, like don't keep sweets at home, because if it's not there, then you'll not reach out to it.
That's true. I tried that a lot, but I think
it's very hard.
One more rule, and which has nothing to do with, hopefully one day I'll be able to apply to food. But when I wanted to quit alcohol, or that occasional once in a while smoking, I hope my son doesn't watch this, but it's easier to stick to something 100% of the time than 99% of the time.
Interesting.
And I learned it very hard. So, यार, मतलब एक सिगरेट चल जाएगा, आज वीकेंड है, बाहर हो, मैच है, एक बियर चल जाएगा. That एक is never एक. Then the rebound is very bad. And maybe I have a compulsive personality. I don't know.
No, it's very true. I think, the controlling screen time with your child is also a similar process.
True.
It was always about that one episode would become another episode. And then, you're just negotiating constantly. So we just went cold turkey one day. We disconnected Wi-Fi in the house. 6 months passed with zero TV at home.
I left alcohol like that. I think it's now 3 years. I've not touched a drop. I've not smoked since 4-5 years now.
Wow.
Not and over a period of time, I don't even feel now the urge to do it, right? So, but you have to make that. So I had written it down that it's easier to stick to it 100% than 99%. Don't, make an exception. I wish I'm able to make that for food, but it never happens. Yeah.
How does one do that for food, I wonder?
The bigger problem with me, what happens is every day I sleep with a resolution that tomorrow I'll eat well. Right. And I'm sure a lot of people are going through that, especially in the earlier part of the year, because, you make that resolutions. And then once I do, I indulge, then I say, aaj ka to ho gaya, let me do. I double down on that indulgence, right? I go all in. So this mindset, I think another thing I read from James Clear, Atomic Habits, is this all-in mindset can be very dangerous also sometimes, right? Like, ya to bilkul nahi, in food especially, ya to bilkul nahi karunga ya karunga. Maybe alcohol and all it works. In food, it doesn't work. So if I do a mistake, I then go all in and I said, kal se main nahi karunga. So I'm just trying to figure out. Food has been tricky for me also. Yeah.
A friend of mine called 2 days back, and he's a venture capitalist working in the health space. And he called and he said, "How are you doing? How's health? How's health?" I said, "It's fine." I said, "Is this how we start our conversation in our 40s?" And he said, "No, this is how I start a conversation with anyone I speak to now, because people in their 20s are struggling.
True.
Every second person I'm speaking to has some health issue or another.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure all these are, repercussions of our lifestyle. And
absolutely. It compounds. Bad habits also compound, right? Your metabolic rate is high in 20s. You don't take care of your body and you're eating whatever. And then all of that is fine. But come 30s, mid 30s, you'll pay for that.
Yeah. So you spoke about, how people, when they speak about one thing, they speak about wanting to be conscious, but the shopping carts tell a different story. What's the psychology behind this? And how do we kind of fight this if we had to?
And this is true for me also. And I'm probably a decent representation of a mainstream audience, is that we don't live life, we are not binary. It's not 0-1, it's not black or white. We all live in gray, right? I'm trying to make better choices, and they're better organic ingredients that you will see in my shopping cart. There are also moments that when I want to indulge. Otherwise, what's the point of life? Honestly, right? I want to have that dessert. I want to have an ice cream with my son. I want to enjoy once in a while Maggie. I don't know, I might, like, this is not probably politically correct on a podcast like this, but that is how it is. That's my view on life. I don't want life to feel like it's a punishment. It is not, right? So there are moments where, like, for large part of the weeks, I'm trying to eat healthy. There are moments where I'm giving myself the permission to not like indulge and have fun or whatever. That's one part. So that's why you see the carts having a mix of both, right? Also, it's a function of age. I want to feed my child good stuff, but I don't mind packing Maggie on a Friday morning because that snack is allowed in his school. I don't mind him having once in a while a pack of Lays. It's fine, even I enjoy with him. So I'm being very honest here, right?
Of course. Yeah.
So I think as brand custodians or as a very discerning audience or very health conscious, we look at generally these carts and we kind of make a judgment. Who are we to make a judgment about the consumers in that sense, right? I think overall, do people want to make healthier choices? Yes, they want to make healthier choices. Do they only want to make healthier choices? No. That's not how the reality is. And one more thing that is important for us to realize is, if today you have 100 rupees in your pocket and you want to kind of feed yourself, it's far easier to feed on junk than feed on healthier options.
So true.
That's the reality. It's very difficult to find actually healthier options when in that money. So it's far more convenient, far more cheaper to indulge in junk, unhealthy food than to eat healthier options.
It's also, I think, one is, of course, maybe it's the 80-20 rule that applies over here. Like 80% if you're eating home cooked food.
True.
And the other 20% you indulge in,
absolutely. As long as your majority of occasions is kind of healthy, thoughtful, mindful eating, I think it's fine.
Yeah.
And then I've also realized, one of the things that you asked me, I've also realized the power of moderation in this, right? Like the fancy diets and all of that don't really work. I want to do something that is possible for me to kind of sustain it. I think with age, you understand these crash diets वगैरह काम नहीं करते. So that's one of the things I'm moving to, like kind of sticking to 3 meals, no in between snacking, all of that. Portion control, and so on.
No, I think sometimes we exaggerate this whole healthy eating that we speak of, and we make it very complex.
True.
Actually, healthy eating is जो घर में बन रहा है.
Actually, so true, because अभी मतलब realization होता है कि यार जो आपके parents और आपके grandparents कहते थे, boss, that is what we are coming back to now. Right? That's why I said, whatever for me, whatever is home cooked is good enough. I consider it to be healthy. The worst thing that happens with someone like me is that I eat something and I feel guilty about it. So I've made this year, one of my resolutions is not feel guilty.
Yeah.
Right. Then there is no point. at least might as well enjoy if you've eaten that, right?
Yeah.
And this guilt used to be constant. I said, boss, ye social media, influencers, everything they want to make you feel guilty about, right? Boss, mujhe guilty nahi feel karna. I'm okay. That's fine.
So consumers are becoming aware, right?
Yeah.
The demand towards mindful, the category of mindfulness is slowly starting to, increase, right? Are brands catching up?
So as I said, the vocabulary, there's some catchphrases that have become very popular, right? Which is no maida, no added sugar, consumer ki vocabulary. These are the things that they're looking for. Then the importance of protein and so on. And that's one thing consumers are doing. I think the new age brands are kind of trying to cater to this kind of rising phenomena of offering better products. What we need to realize is that the coming up curve of Indian consumers is very, very rapid. So from a place where they blindly trust to now trying to make conscious choice to really discerning, wo journey बहुत जल्दी हो भी जाएगा, right? So what is important for brands is that gone are the days where you can pull in people through marketing gimmickry, right? So transparency, authenticity is extremely important. One of the things that I'm seeing increasingly across is that a lot of people are trusting smaller brands to be delivering more on this than big incumbents who they see as very, kind of what do you see, profit seeking as a priority.
Yeah.
So that's what it is. Yeah. But if you ask me, and this is in no way saying that this is how it will turn out, but for me, better for you doesn't work actually. Either I'll have good for you, which is real good stuff, or I want to have indulgent stuff. This because on the journey now I realized better for you is a bigger sham. Right?
You're just saying you're better than that one guy who's worse than you.
How is atta noodles better than regular Maggi? Seriously, how is a digestive biscuit, whatever, with 2% atta better than regular biscuit? Might as well do that. So I personally actually am happy doing really good choices where I know the integrity of the product and I trust the product. Or when I want to indulge, I want to indulge. This middle of the road, there's this beautiful thing that when you're middle of the road, you have the highest chance of getting, knocked off by a car, right? So I am not very bullish on better for you as a consumer, and I'm talking for myself, is that it doesn't really kind of work for me.
And it keeps changing, right? Like for 5 years, they'll say something is better for you. 5 years later, they come back and say that's not better for you. This other thing is better for you.
Absolutely.
So that also I feel like you don't know how much to, again, like it goes back to trust for me. Like how much do you trust?
All said and done, I think what the brands cannot ignore is the fact that you have to deliver on taste. You have to be convenient for me to discover, pick you, try you. And you have to kind of be affordable for me, reasonably affordable for me, right? These things are non-negotiable. A lot of times I talk to brand marketers where they're saying that, we make such great product, but consumer traction nahi mil raha. But consumer doesn't want to feel like he's making a sacrifice in choosing you.
Yeah.
You have pathetic, kind of UI UX. You have terrible delivery timelines. You're charging such a premium that it almost looks like I'm paying a fine. So that's not how consumer wants to kind of feel when he's buying for this. So it's our job as brand marketers also to make it convenient for them, make it very practical for them, make it easy for them, and make it like they're okay to pay a premium, but it has to be justifiable.
And do you see, so there are two kinds of brands, right? One that is playing in the space of ingredients, like the bare minimum ingredients, which is your attas and your spices and your jaggery, and like which brand that is coming from, versus brands that are giving you value added products. So this is good for you. Over here would possibly be, I've made something which is value added that is good for you, versus the ingredient products are telling you this is good for you because I've grown it differently, I've processed it differently, and so it's good for you.
So when I'm making a choice to move from white rice to brown rice, a tea to a green tea, I'm already at an ingredient level, I'm saying I'm already making healthier choices, right? So that's one thing. Now, interesting thing happened, right? So we order a lot of products from I think 24 Mantra. I have seen that recently my wife started, and we stopped ordering all these bhujiyas and everything. And like you said, the best thing is to not stock them. A lot of these products that I see are from these organic brands like 24 Mantra. They started making mixtures and stuff, and we are ordering it because fundamentally, I think we believe that we trust the ingredients. At least good ingredients are getting into this.
Good oil,
good ingredients, whatever. So I think a lot of these people who are still into ingredient play, I think they will move up the ladder. That is what is bound to happen. So it's almost like value added products. So if I'm taking milk from Akshayakalpa and I trust your milk, I might as well trust your milkshake over someone else's milkshake. And that is happening at my place, right? Buttermilk, cheese, ghee. So I'm actually, more and more occasions are coming out to you, right? And then I realized on the app that you also have bread, you also have bananas. So we start ordering. So a lot of things are, so once you put a trust in a brand, you're looking at the brand, you're willing to let the brand cater to more and more.
Yeah. So, the kind of work that we do with our farmers is also, it's very interesting actually, the contrast that we can draw, or the similarity that exists, is that once he starts working on his piece of land and he's converted it into organic, and that process itself takes him 2 to 3 years, right? For the land to be fully organic, for the soil to have nutrition, to grow nutritious food, right? Once he reaches that place, apart from growing fodder for his cows, we also encourage him to grow other things, right? And we say, whatever you grow, we will connect it to the market.
Awesome.
So that's why you see, for example, there are seasonal fruits that are now getting added to the basket because he's growing. And of course, like our fruits and vegetables, one of the things that happens a lot is that it goes out of stock very quickly.
True. That's my biggest complaint actually, right? Like, if I only stick to Akshayakalpa for ordering my vegetables and fruits, I'll only end up eating banana, lauki, and a couple of other things because most of the stuff is out of stock.
Yeah, we're working on it. We're working on making that better. But yeah, so that's something that we're doing, which is the diversity that he's bringing in his field.
True.
We're trying to bring it, to the consumer as well, and there are takers.
Absolutely, it makes sense, immense sense, right? So like, it's like, probably one of these examples. So if you look at like Mamaearth, right? They started with baby range, and with a very like compelling story. And I'm no judge on whether the product is good or not. I'm not a judge. I'm not in a position to kind of comment on that. But the story is incredible that young parents looking for products for their newborn couldn't find and started making. So the products started coming to our homes. So if you're trusting something with your kid, you will trust with, that's the highest moment of truth, right? You will trust with everything else. And then hence now you have range that caters to entire family. You have to range that caters to all your needs. So, and that's how the brand has grown, right?
Yeah.
So consumers, if they're posing trust in you, they are willing to give you a chance to kind of extend that.
We did a research, and in that, one of the things that we figured that the category through which the consumer enters this conscious eating journey, surprisingly for us, is salt and sugar. They're trying to replace their salt and sugar with like pink salt or sugar with jaggery, right?
Yeah.
And now you actually, like, after we did that study, I'm seeing that everywhere there is a jaggery option that is available.
True.
You go to your regular chai wala, he has jaggery wala chai, right? And then you slowly go up the ladder with changing your staples, changing your fruits and vegetables, and dairy possibly is like much later, like you start thinking about it.
I don't know about dairy. It also depends on the, like, for example, if you have a young kid who is drinking that glass of milk every morning, you want to be very particular about dairy. Like, one of the biggest opportunities that I see in this space is that if brands are becoming icons of trust, and a shorthand for decision making, the most important thing that I consume every day are fruits and vegetables.
Yes.
But there's no brand that exists there, right? If I go to quick commerce, it says sourced at 5 p.m, organic. I'm just trusting them, ordering them. But I think there's a space. There will emerge many brands in this perishables, fresh produce space where I trust them and I blind, because that is the majority of my consumption in a day is that. Right. So, yeah, I see that as a great opportunity for someone to crack.
So, do you think there's an overlap between this health conscious consumer segment and the environmentally friendly, sustainable, eco-friendly segment? Do you think there is an overlap between these two?
At some level, there might be an overlap. it feels definitely good to think that there's an overlap, right? But eco-friendly is a different ballgame altogether. Right? So I will be lying if I say I am trying to make conscious choices in terms of my consumption, but I'll be lying if I say that I am very eco-conscious, because otherwise I would not be ordering 5 times from quick commerce every day.
Yeah.
Right? So what you have to understand is that as consumers, as human beings, we are prisoners of convenience. Right? So you have to actually, make it convenient for them. As I said, it shouldn't feel like a sacrifice.
Yeah.
It shouldn't feel like I'm doing all the hard work. And the other thing is practicality. If I was really eco-conscious, from 30 kilometers far I'm coming, I would not be coming with my driver all by myself, right? I would take a public transport. But is the infrastructure so well developed for me to be able to make those choices? And it's counterintuitive. It's not often that people say this, but talking to so many consumers, I think if I were to distill everything about them, I think the whole mantra or what the consumer is saying is what's in it for me?
Yeah.
Right? Mere liye kya? You remember this beautiful Maruti ad, kitna deti hai?
Yeah.
It's all about mileage. So if someone is buying a Tesla, they're not buying essentially because they're eco-conscious. They're buying because they want to signal that I'm rich enough to afford this.
Yeah.
Right? They want to signal you that I have great taste.
Yeah.
And also, by the way, I'm also eco-conscious, right? If someone is buying a total environment home, right? Of course, it will tick box on the eco, but that's not the primary reason why you buy.
Yeah.
You will not invest crores of monies because you want to show the world or prove to yourself that you're eco-conscious.
Yeah.
You invest in them because they make irresistible homes, right? Which also happen to be eco-friendly. So that's how it is.
It's
so
a plus. And not the...
Plus. Absolutely. That's how it is. So convenience, practicality are very, very important. Yeah. So small things like, look, we don't use single-use plastic. All of these things we have done. But like on basis of that, can I claim that I'm eco-conscious? I'm not. Probably my wife is a lot more. And sometimes she goes extra length to kind of do that, which also bothers me. I'm not very proud of that, but yeah, I'm not. Yeah.
Right.
And I represent quite a lot of consumers.
Of course, yeah. No, but like you spoke about Tesla, like, even people who are trying to be eco-conscious are also trying to create that imagery around them that they are. And for that, they may go towards things and brands that are giving them products which can build on this imagery, isn't it? Like,
yeah, if it is not too much of a stretch, I don't mind. Like, for example, if I can spend some 2,000, 5,000 rupees on something and kind of signal that I'm eco-conscious and it kind of matches my sensibility, probably it's fine.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to spend like vast amounts of money to kind of signal that, right?
Yeah.
So see, as a brand, if you are promising eco-conscious, if you're promising organic or whatever, please understand that's not an excuse to give something suboptimal.
Yeah. No, very true. Yeah.
I don't want to compromise. If I'm buying fashion, I don't want to compromise on how it looks.
Yeah.
If I'm buying personal care, I don't want to compromise on the, the feel and the aroma and the texture and so on, right?
Yeah.
If I'm doing that in food, I don't want to compromise on taste. I don't want to buy something organic and if I don't enjoy the taste, it doesn't matter, honestly.
Yeah.
That's how it is.
So my bag is torn. There are holes now in it, and I'm trying to pick a eco-friendly, not eco-friendly, but a bag which I feel, which I'm not going to feel guilty about, because I feel like that's something that I'm going to carry for the next 3-4 years. And I'm looking and I'm not able to make up my mind, because I have found a brand which is basically making bags out of recycled plastic. Okay. They've done it.
I don't want to recommend a brand because people will not like it. Yeah. So as long as, you're on one end of the spectrum.
No, but I'm saying that even me, right? Like I want it to look nice. Like
absolutely.
I want it to look, and you need to match my, my idea of style for me to make that choice.
Absolutely.
And that's the reason I've still not bought it. Like I'm just looking at it thinking, will this go with everything that I wear and all the places that I want to go to, because I'm not going to change my bag. So that's going to be the only bag that I have. But yeah, like you said, I think it should tick the other boxes as well.
And also, you're at one end of the spectrum, right? Who's thinking so much. I'm on the other end of the spectrum. यार, अगर मैं bag जल्दी change नहीं कर रहा हूँ, that is also a good behavior, right? Matlab, if I'm not
Yeah.
like buying like crazy and discarding stuff, then I think I'm fairly kind of eco-conscious.
Yeah, yeah,
That's my
yeah.
take. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's an activist level eco-consciousness versus, all of
Mm.
us trying to kind of make those small
Yeah.
choices and
Yeah. Yeah.
changes,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I recently wrote this on LinkedIn that I changed my pen from
Mm.
a use and throw pen to a fountain pen,
Mm.
and what a difference it has made, honestly, because
True.
I'm
True.
not disposing, every time I finish writing, I'm not disposing a pen, I'm just refilling the same one that I have. And,
Absolutely.
and it gives you those small moments of joy when you do these things, and I think that can also.
Yeah. And that's a very interesting thing. Probably I'll also change. I write quite a bit to a fountain pen because it's also a statement that you make with a fountain pen, right? So it's a classy thing,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
people are just not using enough fountain pens.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
And it's a conversation starter, I feel,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
because when you make a choice like this, people around you are seeing, and one of our colleagues also shifted to a fountain pen, and you
Yeah.
feel nice about it.
Mm.
I feel it's about, like, these choices are also about giving ourselves those
True.
moments of joy
True.
by the good that you are doing, and because of you, a few people who are also doing the same good,
Absolutely.
right?
See, one thing, Vashna, I think, you know, the dichotomy of the situation is that if you look at India as a country, at the top of the pyramid, the people who have overconsumed, in
Yeah, yeah,
terms
yeah.
of the consumption is just off the charts. And then there is one set of people who are just about kind of tasting the fruits of consumption. So ये जो बंदा मर्सिडीज और दुनिया जहाँ घूम रहा है, उसके बाद ये स्टेटमेंट कह रहा है कि यार अब मैं ऑफिस साइकिल से जाऊंगा. And there is, on one end of the spectrum, there is this guy, for the first time he's eligible for an EMI to buy a motorcycle, graduating from a cycle. तो ये बंदा अब मैं साइकिल से जाऊंगा ऑफिस और मैं कार नहीं चलाऊंगा, इसको मतलब क्या, मतलब you have to understand the
Yeah.
realities of where they're coming from, right?
True.
Otherwise, I see a lot of people who are eco-conscious, they're very preachy, and that really, ticks me off, right? This is not something you do it because you genuinely care for it. A lot of people do it because it's almost like they come from holier than thou attitude, and kind of, it becomes a talking point for them. So yeah, so we have to
Find that
but
balance.
all the work that I've done on consumers, I've realized that no one absolutely in a position to judge any consumer.
Yeah.
If the
Yeah, very
consumer is not, kind of doing what the brand expects them to do, I think it's brand's fault, not consumers, right?
Yeah. So how can a small brand that is authentic stand up against the big ones who have created enough noise, enough, and earned enough trust?
Yeah, I think very, very interesting point. In fact, a year ago, I had written this kind of post or an article from a newsletter called Advantage David.
Okay.
Right. So when you take on an enemy, don't fight on their strengths, fight on their weaknesses and vulnerabilities. So what is your strength? I think the biggest strength for a small brand is customer centricity. The way that you can connect with your customers, address their grievances, respond to them. I don't think bigger brands can do it, right? The second thing is that I'm more likely to trust an Akshayakalpa to be purpose driven than I'm going to trust like a Unilever or P&G brand, right? Because that is the advantage that a David has. So you can be purpose led and you can really walk the talk and demonstrate that. The other big advantages are the power of community and the power of content, like the podcast that we are doing, or like the farm visits that you do. Your consumers become your biggest evangelist, right? The power of storytelling. The one more thing which I tell a lot of people in this space is that the power of founder as a brand, as someone who is a crusader, someone who is so purpose driven, someone who is actually leading from the front, it humanizes the brand. Right? Compare it to this big organizations, conglomerates, which are faceless institutions. So there are a lot of advantages. Just play to your strengths. That's about it.
Yeah.
And consumers are going to give you a kind of a certain leeway to get it, for trial and error, which they will not give to established brands.
Very true.
Another advantage that you have, as I said, about content is that today, I'm using Spotify. I don't have a premium connection. And every time they play an ad, they tell me that If you don't want this hassle, pay up for the premium. Same with YouTube, right? Ads have become a nuisance.
Yeah.
And the platforms are actually telling you, if you want to avoid this nuisance, better pay premium.
Yeah.
So earlier, ads were the way to communicate and own the mind share. Today, it's not. There's so many other things that you can do, and you can do better than the bigger ones, right? So that's again a big advantage in terms of content.
Right. And what role do influencers play in guiding these choices?
That's a kind of a very, very big debate that requires a session of its own. But I think they play a big role. In some categories, especially I've seen personal care, finance, food, they play a very big role, right? And they play a role at every level. They play a role at discovery. So it helps me discover new brands. It helps me discover new things in this. They play a role at education.
Mm-hmm.
They talk about the ingredients, they talk about what is good for you, what is bad for you. They also play a role of verification. Oh, this brand is claiming this, but this is not right, or this is right, and whatever. But it comes with a lot of writers. One is that there's just too many influencers. It's like anybody wants to start a business, wants to start a restaurant. वो सबका सपना होता है. ऐसे ही हर बंदा जो इन्फ्लुएंसर बनना चाहता है, उसको लगता है कि खाना तो मैं समझता हूँ, everybody thinks he's a foodie, तो उसको लगता है मैं इस पे कर सकता हूँ. That's a thing. So there's no entry barrier. Anybody with a smartphone can become an influencer. There's a lot of myth, misinformation also actually happening in the guise of this thing. Now, the unfortunate truth is that food is a social topic. A lot of posts that my parents send me or WhatsApp forwards are all about food. सुबह उठ के green tea पी लो, रात को ये कर लो, च्यवनप्राश खा लो, मतलब everything. I'm at a strange phase where my son refuses to believe in anything, and my father even takes WhatsApp forwards like gospel.
Yeah.
It's an ironic situation. So a lot of misinformation and all of that, and then just to kind of get those eyeballs and get the algorithm working, you have to sensationalize things. That's what a lot of influencers do, right? And then there is added thing of de-influencing in food.
Yeah.
Busting all these myths and what is bad for you. So overall, मुझे लगता है कि it's a very kind of a complex space. You have to, as a consumer, choose carefully who you want to follow, whose advice you want to take. But consumers also, from our recent research, have realized that, I cannot blindly trust any influencer. They've also realized that some of these influencers are doing a brand speak without kind of, announcing upfront that this is a collaboration. So they're also, so if you're a brand, I think I have one advice for brands is that rather than going with someone who has millions of followers and who thinks that they have the right to comment on everything under the sun, go with smaller micro influencers who might have smaller following, but the community is very engaged, like a young mother influencer who's trying to kind of feed good food to the family, right? A nutritionist, a yoga teacher. I think that works a lot better than these demigods who kind of talk about everything under the sun, and from finance to fitness to food and so on. That's my take.
Right. And what do you think are some of the barriers that are stopping consumers or limiting them from making the right, choices when it comes to good food, when it comes to nutritious food?
The biggest barrier for me is also, I think, a lot of affordability barrier. A lot of these so-called good food brands or some of these brands are probably rightfully so, because I'm sure it's a supply equation and so on, but they're really like very premium for someone to kind of pick it up, right? Also, there is a convenience thing, right? How do you make it easy for the consumer, as I said, to discover us, easy for the consumer to try us out, easy for the consumer to refer us? Some of these brands have still not delivered on that, right? I, was ordering vegetables and fruits from like a cooperative kind of setup, but the app was so pathetic that after a couple of times I said, I'm not going to kind of, do this, no matter whatever they're supplying, it might be really good, but I cannot take that pain, right? That's one. And then look at the rise of e-commerce. Convenience and instant gratification have become absolute table stakes, right? Look at, we are talking about healthy food, we're talking about great choices, and you look at the, the quick delivery of food. 10-minute food delivery that has
Yeah.
kind of become. I went to HSR and in an office, and almost like 60-70% of the people there, all these youngsters, had these bags, the food which was delivering in 10 minutes.
Oh my God.
And imagine what kind of food are you kind of consuming. So there are a lot of contradictions in the way we behave,
Yeah.
right? So I think the barriers are, the convenience again, the affordability and education. Yeah, that's what it is.
But isn't it also the consumer's job to figure out a little more? Like I just feel that it's easy for us to say, hey, like it's my right to be lazy, and you communicate and you tell me and you give me all that knowledge. But end of the day, it's my body and my health and my family's health. So it is a little bit about upon me as a consumer as well to.
No, consumer, I don't think it's fair to say that consumer is not doing enough work. They are doing enough work. They're kind of figuring out which are the common enemies. They're figuring out which are the common, like, what are the things that I should be doing. And in a life of consumer, I think there's so many things that are occupying their mind space, right? As I said, the job of a brand is to ease the decision making, to be a shorthand for making decisions. I think the brand also has to definitely put in effort,
Yeah.
right? Or someone will do it better than you. That's as simple as possible.
Yeah.
In a category specifically where their entry to barrier is very low.
Yeah.
You have a sea of sameness where everybody's claiming same things, dropping the same buzzwords. I think the brand definitely has to work harder than the consumer.
Any emerging trends in this health and wellness space that you have observed?
So we spoke about it. I think generally I've seen that consumers overall want to make healthier choices. There is a lot of there's a role of a good or bad influences is becoming extremely important, right? Consumers are figuring out those one or two influences that they want to follow, and they're taking their tips quite seriously. That's one of the things that I see. And other thing that I like, few more things, like for example, I've seen that snacking has become like a full day thing now. Especially with people working from home. Every time you go to the kitchen to fetch some water, you see something you're eating. So consumers are also becoming conscious that, there's this emergence or requirement for single serve packs, portion controlled, healthier options. A lot of lifestyle changes also happening, right? So yeah, that's how it is.
What about, nutrition now coming in the form of tablet? Like there are a lot of such brands as well, right? That are, I suddenly see like a surge of moringa tablets.
But I'm sorry to say, but I don't know what is the polite way to put it. I absolutely hate them. Okay. I think supplements and the unregulated sale of supplements that are happening today on our e-commerce sites or quick commerce, from sleep to sexual wellness, it is crazy. The two industries that really piss me, one is this supplements, and people are not able to understand how much protein I need in my body, and now you're expecting them to understand and make wise choice on supplements. You're like, there's so much mis-selling that's happening. It scares me really. And the second one is this online poker bazi kind of thing, right? So I was telling someone that I don't know whether Shark Tank will teach India the entrepreneurship, but they'll definitely get a lot of people excited about poker bazi. So these things are absolutely, I'm very vocal against them. I don't want to kind of take this debate further, but yeah, I'm absolutely against. I think you require a certain level of medical supervision, guidance, recommendation to kind of get onto that journey. Even protein powders or whatever, it's a bit of a scary territory, right? There's so many brands claiming so many things, and if you don't make the right, if you make a wrong choice, it can have really serious implications, right? So yeah.
And what are some of the favorite brands that you have in this space?
Yeah, I have few favorites, but I have an unfair advantage because I also know some of these founders and work with them. So in a health food space, like I worked very closely in the early years of Yoga Bar, Suhasini, Anandita, absolutely committed founders. Their commitment to the product, what goes into it is impeccable, right? And just seeing them in action and seeing them, their kind of passion, uh, I fell in love with Yoga Bar. And I use a lot of their products, especially the muesli is my, like, I think one of the healthier habits that I've done is one meal in a day. On many days, I actually put muesli, yogurt or milk, a lot of fruits, and have it with nuts and seeds. And so I use a lot of Yoga Bar products. That's one. Second one, I think, forget about health food, across brands, across categories. One of the best storytellers is Shashank from Whole Truth. His ability to tell the story, his ability to kind of, the kind of brand that he's creating is phenomenal, right? I also use some of the Whole Truth products actually. In fact, tried, kind of protein powders, and the only brand that I could trust was actually Whole Truth, just because I know that there will be certain level of integrity to the product, right? That's one. Now, interestingly, I met Shashi, Akshayakalpa's founder, and the first time I met him, he told me that he's coming from Tiptur, and then from there he took a bus, then a train, then a bus, because he doesn't use any of these cars. He uses public transport, and I landed there with my chauffeur-driven car, and I felt so guilty. And I tell this to a lot of people. I had written that he, to me, looks more like a farmer than a founder. So Akshayakalpa definitely. And Akshayakalpa, much before we met Shashi, my wife was already subscribing to the milk. Now a lot of products come from Akshayakalpa for us. You recommended Bhumi Farms to me. So I can see a lot of my groceries, vegetables, fruits are coming from Bhumi Farms. I'm very kind of happy with them. Though I think the delivery, you see convenience of ordering and all. But yeah, so that, I'll tell you, these are few brands, but I'm very bullish that there are many more brands that will come. So recently, a cousin of mine was visiting me from US. And of course, whenever they come from US, they get some stuff for us, chocolates and some gadgets and all. But when she was going back, and she has 2 daughters, I saw her packing many of these Slurp Farm packs,
snacks,
right?
Yeah.
Which is your, I think, ragi millet pancake or something they have.
Yeah,
and that was like a real moment of truth. I was so happy.
Yeah.
Right? Someone coming from US and going back and carrying some of these Indian products back home.
Yeah.
Is like a biggest testimony of how far we have come, right?
Yeah.
So I'm very, very bullish on this. Yeah.
And your favorite Akshayakalpa product would be?
My favorite Akshayakalpa product will be buttermilk.
The spiced one?
The spiced one.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
There's a story behind our spiced buttermilk. All the spices that we add is fresh from the farm. We just pluck it from the farm there, and we just grind it.
You can feel that in the taste. It hits you very different. Yeah, yeah. So I love Akshayakalpa. We use a lot of products. For example, paneer is also one of the products which is our favorite from Akshayakalpa, because that's the only paneer now we order. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we have a few quick questions around healthy eating. If you could give one piece of advice to someone starting their clean eating journey, what would it be? Go
easy on yourself, right? Don't feel too guilty. And the journey happens in baby steps, not in giant leaps. Yeah.
What's your go-to meal when you want something quick, healthy and clean?
I love salads, and I love making them. I find them very meditative. The whole act of cleaning vegetables, chopping them, colors coming together. Otherwise, my go-to comfort meal is Yoga Bar muesli with milk, fruits, nuts and seeds. Yes.
What's the most surprising thing you've learned about food labels?
I've tried reading a lot of food labels. Even for someone like me, they're extremely hard to decode. That's one thing. And, like we talked about sugar and salt, I used to feel that, jaggery is very good. And sometimes I used to overconsume that. But now I've realized that probably everything is a form of sugar.
If you had to describe good food in 3 words, what would they be?
Tasty, wholesome, feel good. Like whenever I've realized one virtue of good food is that there is certain feel goodness to it.
Yeah.
Right? There's certain wholesomeness to it. It's very hard to describe it in words, but you know that you've had a good meal.
Yeah. What's a food tradition from your childhood that you still follow?
Parle ji and chai. I like every single day. Yeah, Parle-Ji and chai.
What's the one non-negotiable ingredient in your grocery cart?
I think for me, I think it'll be a dark chocolate, a bar of dark chocolate.
Nice.
Yeah, and lately, I think one of the things I definitely am sure to stock is peanut butter.
Okay.
Yeah,
What's the one ingredient that you ensure never enters your kitchen?
maida definitely doesn't. We're trying to replace as much sugar with jaggery, but it still comes.
Yeah.
But we are trying to replace that.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your favorite kitchen experiment gone wrong?
Yeah, but like a lot of my experiments go wrong because I love cooking, and over the weekend I make a mess out of it. So yeah, a lot of them go wrong.
And what food trend you think is totally overrated?
Any of the fats are overrated for
Okay.
me. Anything or any of this superfood hype is overrated. I have, as I said, rule of thumb is that if this is something that my grandmother didn't know of, I don't think, matlab, I am really not bullish on it. It's
Right.
as simple as that, right?
If a movie was made about your food choices, what would it be called?
You live to eat or something like that. Yeah, yeah. Food plays a very, very important part in my life. In
Nice.
fact, when I'm traveling and I make actually even before my travel, or if I'm coming here, I already know where do I want to stop, what food I want to
Oh,
have, what
wow.
menu do. Like I'm actually, one of the things I do is to go to the restaurant menus and select the dishes that I want to order and all. So I am absolutely crazy about food. Yeah,
Conscious eater or driven by cravings?
driven by cravings.
Guided by taste or mindful choices?
Taste. Trying to change, but yeah, that's the reality. Taste is very important. But one small nuance here is that the more I've started making healthier choices, the more the wholesome food tastes a lot better to me than junk. Right? In the mind, I
Yeah.
think somewhere you subconsciously make that switch that the food that looks good, that feels wholesome, also tastes better to me.
Yeah. Eat in or dine out?
Eat in.
Order in or cook at home?
Now a lot of cook at home. I also it's a great way for you to bond with your spouse and kid. And also I love making Sunday breakfasts
Very nice.
because our cook doesn't come. Yeah, and we are blessed by an excellent cook. So yeah, so whatever you want, she makes it for us. So yeah,
It's amazing. I'll take the number later. Locally sourced ingredients or exotic flavors?
see, absolutely locally sourced. Because not because of my choice, but my wife's compulsion. In fact, not even locally sourced. It's also we only eat seasonal.
Mm.
So she will not let me order a watermelon, though it might be available throughout the year unless it's summers. Matlab, she's very, very particular.
Right. Nice.
And yeah, so yeah,
Organic or conventional?
organic.
Know my farmer or know my brand?
Right now, know my brand. I don't have the luxury of knowing my farmer, but know my brand. Yeah.
Snacking throughout the day or structured meals?
Trying to move to structured meals, but snacking throughout the day. I do a lot of stress eating. Every time I go to the kitchen, I work from home when I'm here. I actually try to eat something. So one of the things I'm trying to do, my wife is trying to do, is hide the food from my side, or at least stock some good things like dry fruits
Nice.
and all.
Reusable containers or biodegradable?
Reusable.
Reusable.
We don't have plastic. We don't use plastic at home.
Food is nourishment or food as indulgence?
Food is nourishment. Food is indulgence. Food is nostalgia. Food is bonding. Food is like everything. Like it's such a powerful, kind of connector.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Energy bars or homemade snacks?
Homemade snacks. I don't like energy bars much.
We've come to the
Perfect.
end of it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
Thanks,
Gurudev,
Ratan.
for coming and
Thanks.
sharing these insights with us. Thank you.
Absolutely lovely chat. I think once I watch this, I'll also question some of my choices and probably reflect on them. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ratan.